here. Activate warp speed.
Quite a ride. Warp speed. Amen. Awesome, awesome. What'll be next year? I have no idea. Well, obviously, we're going to need warp speed. That's what God said, right? We got to go faster than we have been with more intention. Be intentional. So, hey, welcome to Provision. A lot is happening. I've got a lot to cover with you today, and so we're going to dive right into it, and we're going to have a good time. And I always start when I'm preaching at church, I always say, buckle your seatbelts. I think after that video, you really realize you need to do that. So where do you want to go? Write that down on your notes. Where do you want to go? There has to be an answer to it. There is an answer to it, actually. And you're probably already living in that answer, but I'm asking you today, where do you want to go? Now, when I grew up right here in New Albany. We didn't go very far. We didn't travel. Money was tight in my family. And I can still remember my parents had as a child, first grader, my parents had this big fight. I lived in Columbus, Clintonville at that time, and I walked to school in first grade. Now, think of it today, it's probably not, people wouldn't think of doing that, but we all walked to school back there in first grade, and it was winter, and Mom wanted to buy me a coat, and I don't know if anyone remembers this brand, I'm not sure, but there was this big fight. Mom won. She wasn't going to send her first grader down the street without a good coat in the wintertime, But she bought this, if anyone remembers this, a brown corduroy Mighty Mac was the name of the coat with the hood, Mighty Mac coat. I still remember this day that I was so proud of that coat. Man, I loved that coat, right? My dad, bless his heart, if we ever were going to do something frivolous in his mind, he'd always say, well, someday you'll grow up. You got responsibilities. So, we didn't do much. We didn't have many dreams, because if you have that kind of comment every time you have a thought, you learn real quick not even to bother to have the thought, right? So I can't remember traveling too much at all, really. We didn't travel. We'd go to Columbus to shop some, but didn't get out. I didn't know I didn't get out. You ever know? I didn't know I was missing something, But I was 14, and my friend and I decided to save our money and buy a Schwinn 10-speed. Now, that was the bike to have back then. And one that had that speedometer on it. You could buy this accessory, this speedometer. We were really, really thrilled about these bikes. We'd ride them up and down our street, and one day we thought we'd take a trip. Now, to us, we didn't know what a trip was. We just wanted to get out of the ordinary street there. We knew if we went down the street and turned left, we'd go to the school, which we did. We'd ride our bikes to school some. If we went right, the county line was right there. We had no idea what was on the other side of the county line. So we were going to take a trip. We were going to cross that county line and take a big bicycle trip, right? So we headed down there and rode, and finally came to a little town, had a store there, and it was a hot day. We were thirsty, so we went in and began to tell the lady about our big bicycle trip that we were on. So we asked the lady about the name of the town, and I'd never heard of it. And I said, well, how far back is that intersection we came from? She said, 5 miles? We thought, 5 miles? We thought we'd ridden about 50. We were so discouraged, we just rode back home. But it's interesting. I didn't even know the name of a town 5 miles down my street. I mean, I didn't even know the towns around us. We lived in this little bubble. My parents just didn't go anywhere. My grandpa died when I was 13, my dad's dad, and going down in his basement, cleaning out some things, I found a box of this old rusted up gun. And my dad said I could have it. I'm sure he thought it was just a bunch of junk, but he didn't know how resourceful I was when it came to trying to make this thing work. And I worked on that thing, and I got it working. And I can remember the day I walked out there carrying that gun to my dad and said, Dad, look, I got it to work. Will you shoot it? I was shocked. My dad said, yeah, I'll shoot it. And he went out and shot it 12 gauge. It was a 1919 German Mauser action, bolt action, an old gun. And he shot that thing, and he said, you can have it. And we grew up on my dad's farm, my grandma's farm. We built a house. My dad built a house there. And so I asked him if I could hunt. And he said yes. I was surprised. Anyway, I was hooked. Man, I loved being out in the woods. I loved hunting with that old shotgun. And I thought it was the best thing. It was just amazing, right? And so I signed up for the subscriptions to all and every outdoor book I could get my hands on. I'd go to the library. I had Outdoor Life, Sports Afield, Fur Fish and Game. What's all of them? I don't know. They're endless, right? Herder's Catalog, which was the catalog like Cabela's was back then. I would sit in study hall, and I'd study that catalog, and I had stacks of these magazines that high. I had stacks of them all through junior high, all through high school and college. I kept every one of them. And I had stacks. I'd read those things 2 or 3 times through, man. And the amazing thing was I understand what happened, but I never, not once, had the thought to do what I saw in those magazines. Even though I loved hunting, I never had the idea to even go and do that. Not once. Not once. See, I had been trained, I say it this way, I had been trained to say no so well. I had been trained to think no before I even said no. You understand what I'm saying? I was a professional trained no because that's what my dad said. No, no, right? So I had my training in no. And I have to admit, in my life, that was probably the greatest hindrance that I've had to overcome is that no training. And I imagine some of you, if not many of you here today, have had the same training. No, can't do that. Can't do that. In fact, most of us say no before we even calculate if something's possible because we're so accustomed to thinking our little box, we can't do that. Drenda has to correct me. Even to this day, she'll have to correct me because I'll revert back to that before I even calculate what is there. Come on, how many do that? Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you can't go warp speed that way. I'm serious, and this is what this morning session is about. You'll never go there. You'll never even think how to get there. You'll never even think to ask how to get there because you have been trained to say no over and over and over again, right?